Good evening. Welcome to our study tonight. Let me start off within the news on this January 18th. As we go, these articles, and all of them are headed into different headings. This one's a New World Order to show us what's happening in the world. This one came out today. It said, world leaders deal in Davos with new expectations. Have you noticed that large families are being greatly discouraged these days? Well, our movies, our television shows, our major news networks, and even our textbooks encourage us to put off having children till we're older or as long as possible, and to have as very few kids as we possibly can. See, the truth is that the global elite and their minions do not consider human life to be valuable. Instead, they see us as a giant herd of carbon-emitting big machines that dominate humanity. They are also quite interested in thinning the herd any way they can. So a lot of time and effort is being put into convincing women to prioritize their education and their careers over motherhood. And there's reasons for that. It's a propaganda that's been quite successful. In fact, fewer women in the United States are choosing to have children than ever before. From 2002 to 2019, the share of women aged 15 to 45 with at least one child dropped from 60% to 50%. Then also, survey after survey has shown us that women without children, now watch this, are much more likely to embrace the social and political agendas of the global elite. They're much more likely to be very liberal. Obviously, because they're not taking care of children, we know that's a 24/7 job, but they're now being able to explore their world and their culture. So these days, so many women are waiting until their 30s or their 40s before having children. But that's not normal. Throughout human history, the norm has been for women to have children during their most fertile years, when their babies that are produced will be most likely to be healthy. You heard that right. What happens is, if you have them later in life, there's a great chance and possibility that your children won't be that healthy. But the elite just continue to pump out their propaganda. On a recent episode of 60 Minutes, biologist Paul Ehrlich boldly claimed that, quote, humanity is not sustainable. I don't even know how this guy could be a biologist or even be able to be a public speaker. Here's what he said. Oh, humanity is not sustainable. To maintain our lifestyle, yours and mine, basically, for the entire planet, you need 5 more Earths, not clear where they're going to come from. In other words, he's a proponent of having a whole lot less of a population so he can live. Ehrlich is not some fringe guy either. He's worked in the White House, and he currently works at Stanford University. This is how the global elite truly see things. They believe that we're facing a horrifying environmental nightmare, and they believe that humanity is the cause of the nightmare. A record number of businesses and governments leaders will descend this week on the Swiss resort of Davos to pour over challenges ranging from global economic slowdown to environmental collapse as the World Economic Forum returns to its winter slot. The World Economic Forum has become an event that ambiguous global leaders simply cannot afford to miss. And amazingly, this year a whopping 52 heads of state will attend. 52 heads of state and government will show up for the next to 56 financial ministers, 19 central bank governors, 30 trade ministers, 35 foreign ministers. If you don't think something's going on here, these are the elites trying to control the world. Heads of the United Nations, heads of the International Monetary Fund, and World Trade Organization will be among 39 leaders of international agencies. The global agenda for the next 12 months will be greatly shaped by what happens in Davos next week. And you and I are not invited. Needless to say, they are not interested in looking after your best interests. Let me show you the picture of the last Davos meeting. Well, what they really want is to thin the herd any way they can, and that means encouraging all the rest of us to have fewer children, among other things. Speaking of Davos, let me give you this one. It goes right down along the elite's agenda for our world. Paris is planning to become a 15-minute city. You have to listen to this one. It almost sounds ridiculous, but it's definitely something coming down the line. 15-minute cities are popping up everywhere, and the World Economic Forum is widely enthusiastic about them. Last year, it was announced that Paris, France, would become a 15-minute city. I know you want to know what that is, and I'll tell you in a moment. And now the British city of Oxford is next on the list, and the Britons are fighting back. It will divide Oxford into 15-minute neighborhoods, listen well, or small 15-minute towns billed as greener, cleaner, and safer. To further seize control of people's lives, globalists are pushing the false idea that these green cities are the future for mankind. Residents are not allowed to leave your 15-minute city by car more than a lot of times during the year. Otherwise, you'll be fined. In addition, the government will track and control your every movement through your smartphones and facial recognition technology. The 15-minute city concept is crucial in the United Nations Agenda 2030 and their net zero green agenda. The World Economic Forum is also pushing this new concept, and no doubt it will come up at Davos. As early as 2024, Oxford plans to impose climate lockdowns. It's coming on residents to help achieve the Council's net zero carbon Oxford vision by 2040. Oxford will be divided into 6 zones to save the planet, I'm quoting, from global warming, again quoting. Electronic fences are placed on access roads to ensure residents will remain within their own zone. Are you kidding me? This sounds like a sci-fi movie. Residents are allowed to leave their 15-minute city a maximum of about 90 times a year, but then they must first register their car, which is tracked through the city via smart cameras. Total control, total government control. While the initial allotment of escape tickets may seem reasonable to some, once the public accepts that the state has the right to confine you, it is guaranteed that they will add additional restrictions and fewer permits to leave your home. This is what's coming. Oxford residents are furious and they're taken to the streets, but their media is silent. Go figure. Oxford citizens have taken to the streets. The media is silent, of course, writes UK journalist Sophie Cochrane. So we're watching something happen all around cities, one at a time, slowly, gradually, but eventually it's going to take over because the elites are controlling it. Let me give you another one. This one's kind of exciting and interesting. I'm not going to read it all to you because I have so much inside information to it from it. But biblical site where Jesus healed the blind man has been excavated for public view and affirms Scripture. The Israeli Antiquities Authority. Let me remind you that they are all Jews, the Israeli Antiquity Authority. The Israel National Parks Authority and the City of David Foundation, also Jews, announced days before the New Year that the Pool of Siloam, a biblical site cherished by Christians and Jews, will be open to the public for the first time in 2,000 years. Let me just tell you a little bit about it, not reading it. This is a picture, a rendition of the Pool of Siloam. You'll see it right over here. It's very, very large. If you went to Israel, and I've been there over 50 times, it's on the City of David. It's on the bottom part of the hill. So the Pool of Siloam is right here. We know that the water comes from the Hezekiah's tunnel and it fills up the Pool of Siloam. That Pool of Siloam was active in Jesus' day. Herod actually expanded the pool. For years, when I went to Israel, they would point to a grassy area and tell us that's where the Pool of Siloam used to be. They knew it was at the foot of the mountain. But recently as I think it was 1995, they were digging on the side of the mountain, trying to put in a new drainage system, and they hit a void, and in that void they found steps. These steps were not where they said the Pool of Siloam was. These steps were very close to the mountain, and they're Herodian steps that led right down to the Pool of Siloam. They only uncovered a little bit of it, one little corner. Matter of fact, I was there when they were uncovering it. I managed to buy the coins that were found in the corner. I have the first coins that were found in the Pool of Siloam from Jesus' day. So this pool, that's a rendering of the Pool of Siloam in the Second Temple period. Zev Orenstein, the director of international affairs of the City of David Foundation in Jerusalem, told Fox News Digital, one of the most significant sites affirming Jerusalem's biblical heritage. So as you continue to go on, they also found this. And this was a while ago that they found this, but this is a stele. This is a stone. It says, and this stone has the actual story of the digging out of Hezekiah's tunnel and the Pool of Siloam. The inscription dates from the 8th century BC. It is found in Hezekiah's tunnel. It describes in early Hebrew script the drama of digging this tunnel. They dug it from 2 different sides, almost 2 miles wide, and they met in the middle. Amazing feat. When we go there, and next time you need to go with me, we actually walk through the actual tunnel. So the pool was first built about 2,700 years ago as part of Jerusalem's water system in the 8th century BC. The construction unfolded during the reign of King Hezekiah, as cited in the book of 2 Kings 20, verse 20. If you continue to look at these charts, this is a rendition of what it looked like in Jesus' day. Absolutely beautiful. And if you remember your Bible, you remember that Jesus healed the blind man at this pool. And so as he healed the blind man, there was also a ritual to come down during one of the feast days of Israel and to come and draw the water and walk it all the way back up to the temple. That's the time Jesus declared that he was the water of life at that exact same feast. So we had one man, his name is Moore, an archaeologist, who's on the advisory board of the Combat Anti-Semitism movement, added, "In the Pula Siloam, we find evidence of history preserved for us, revealed at just the right time." He says, "Truly, this is historic. Theologically, it affirms Scripture and Jesus healing the blind man here. Geographically, it affirms history, and politically, it affirms Israel's unquestionable and unrivaled link to Jerusalem, something that the Muslims deny." This one is how it looked when they first found it. That's when I first went there. Over here, down on the right, is the corner where I purchased those coins from Jesus' day. So this, if you continue to go on these steps and go to the right, there's the Hezekiah's tunnel. So, a stroke of luck, they said, revealed in 2004 when infrastructure work carried out by the Hagion Water Company uncovered some of the pool steps. They actually uncovered it early in the 90s, but didn't know what it was. 2004 was confirmed as they dug down, that you can see in this picture. So here's the amazing part of this. It was Jewish archaeologists who talked about Jesus healing the blind man at this site. You gotta love that, because they denied that Jesus sometimes even lived. But now they're admitting that this is the site that Jesus healed the blind man. All right, get ready for the shock. $10 for 18 eggs. Do you remember when you could buy a dozen of eggs for 99 cents? It seems like it was only yesterday, but unfortunately those days are gone forever. Thanks to a variety of factors, egg prices have risen to levels that we have never seen before, and in some areas of the country, significant shortages are being reported. In fact, things are so bad that Whole Foods is apparently now limiting egg carton purchases to 2 per person. Egg cases were bare across Los Angeles County this week, from Trader Joe's in Long Beach to Amazon Fresh in Inglewood, Target in Mid-City, and Ralph's in Glendale. The average retail price for a dozen eggs, jumped to $7.50 in California this week, up from $4.80 at the beginning of December, and just $2.35 this time last year. Think about that. From $2.35 to $7.40. Can you imagine paying almost $8 for a carton of eggs? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But yet, everybody says it's fine, nothing's wrong. But egg prices are up significantly more than other foods, even more than chicken or turkey, because egg farmers were hit harder by the bird flu. More than 43 million of the 58 million birds slaughtered over the past year to control the virus have been egg-laying chickens. More than 50 million chickens and turkeys have also been wiped out in Europe. So when you combine the two totals, well over 100 million chickens and turkeys have been killed in just the United States and Europe. And there is no end to the bird flu pandemic in sight. This is a major crisis, but up to this point, the mainstream media has not been focusing on it very much. No, they'd rather tell you about the January 6th overturn of the Capitol. They don't want to tell you about the real issues that face us. Of course, to them, everything is just pleasant. We're coming out of inflation. Everything is just hunky-dory. But the president and CEO of American Egg Board and Trade Group, Errol Metz, said she believes that all the cost increase farmers have faced in the past year were a bigger factor in the price increases than bird flu. Quote, when you're looking at fuel costs going up, you're looking at feed costs going up as much as 60%, labor costs, packaging costs, all of that. These are much, much bigger factors than bird flu for sure, she said. Of course they are. We're told that inflation isn't hurting us. Inflation has a domino effect. When one thing goes up, everything else underneath it goes up, or in front of it. I really feel bad for small bakeries. Nobody thinks about these, but they use an awful lot of eggs. And if egg prices continue to go up, many small bakeries could be forced to close. Our food industry was stable for so many years. We never thought of this. We never have. Since the Great Depression, we've never had a problem with food in America. But now we're witnessing a dramatic shift. Costs are growing through the roof, and supply problems just keep going up. Social media is brimming with reports of missing food items at Kroger supermarket locations across the country. A repeat of early 2020 when toilet paper and other essentials ran bare. The start of 2023 is seeing a lot of the same, a lot of empty shelves at Kroger, according to numerous reports, some containing video evidence of lingering supply chain problems. So I would encourage you to stock up while you still can. Yes, prices may seem ridiculously high now, but the truth is they aren't going to be getting any lower than they are this moment. And this one's kind of interesting. If you're a student of history and you're thinking about war, this came out this week. Japan's historic new military buildup. Here's the interesting part of this. After World War II, Japan wanted to have no military. They actually took all their money away from the military, and they didn't want to build it up. They wanted to be known like Switzerland. They wanted to be a peaceful nation without any military at all. And they did that up until this present week. They had about 1% of their GDP going to military in the past. They have raised that to 3% of their GDP. They are building up their war machine. Now you may want to ask a question, why? Well, China has criticized their work in spite of the fact that China has engaged in its own massive military buildup for years. North Korea has also condemned Japan building up its military. The military buildup and saber rattling in Asian regions should grab the world's attention, as nations increasingly are seeking not only to drastically improve their military capabilities, but also in some cases to bolster their nuclear armaments. The Bible prophecy warns us that the warlike nature of many nations will surface again at the end of the age. And as it approaches, they will continue to have wars and rumors of wars. These are rumors of wars, building up of militaries, building up of nuclear stockpiles, building up of ICBMs. It's happening all over the world. And that's interesting to me because just in the days of not too long ago, when John Kennedy was president, there was a pull down of nuclear weapons. There was a disarmament. Those days are over. Now the whole world is gearing up. That's another sign of the end of the age. Matthew chapter 24:22, Jesus says it. He says that there'll be wars and rumors of wars. The only way this is going to be stopped is when Christ returns and stops the madness. No flesh will be saved alive, Matthew 24 tells us. The positive message of the scriptures is that he will indeed return and save mankind from self-destruction. Let me go a little bit further and bring you down to religion. COVID-19 associated trends of religious decline, and it also accelerated it. Americans who are young, single, or self-identified liberals have long experienced declines in religious membership, in practice, and in identity. But the COVID-19 pandemic appears to have created and accelerated those declines, pushing out those who had maintained the weakest commitments to regular religious attendance, according to a new study. What it's saying is this, is that religious attendance, usually by the young, falls off a little bit. Later on, when they get a little older, they start to go back to church. But what's happened is because of COVID and the pandemic and shutting down churches, people are not going back. A lot of them are not going back. According to the study, adults under 50, less than a college degree, or Black Protestants or Hispanic Catholics experienced the largest changes in religious attendance. Those groups saw the largest percentage of those who attended religious service less often or much less often go even further down. The groups that experienced the least changes in religious attendance were adults 65 and older, who have an understanding of what God means to them. Barna, who conducted the report, said more noticeably and more significantly have been the changes in people's core beliefs. And he's saying even people who go to church in America have abandoned their core beliefs, what we would call the orthodoxy of the Bible. According to Barna, the impact of COVID-19 may not fully be realized even now, 3 years after the start of the pandemic. So we're watching the church in America erode. And it's been doing that for a while, but the pandemic seemed to accelerate that. Let's go a little further. The Supreme Court takes a case of a Christian postal carrier who lost his job for not working on Sundays. Gerald Goff, a Christian, has worked as a UPS carrier since 2012. When his local post office began Sunday deliveries for Amazon in 2015, UPS initially granted his request to not work on Sundays by transferring him to another branch. But when that branch too implemented Sunday delivery, Goff was told he must work on Sundays. Facing termination for refusing to work Sundays, he resigned and he sued USPS. The Supreme Court on Friday announced it would take up the case of Goff versus DeJoy. Goff's attorneys say USPS violated the text of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits religious discrimination by employers. Observing the Sabbath day is critical to many faiths, a day ordained by God. No one should be forced to violate the Sabbath to hold a job, said Randall Wegner of the Independence Law Center. This case, although it doesn't seem that important, is extremely important in America. This case is going to be decided very, very soon by the Supreme Court. It means that employers will have the right to terminate you if you do not want to work on a day that God told you to rest. So it's time for the Supreme Court to reconsider a decades-old case that favors corporations and the government over religious rights of employees. It's very, very detrimental should this come out on the wrong side. Let me go a little bit further and tell you a little bit about moral decay. You want to thank God you don't live in Canada, and I'll tell you why. More than 10,000 people were killed by euthanasia in Canada in 2021 alone. Dr. Ellen Wiebe, who has personally dispatched more than 400 people to their graves, is proudly contributing a significant percentage of that kill count. In fact, in a recent speech to other doctors who work in Canadian killing fields, she bragged that she was willing to kill patients that others refused to clear for MAID, M-A-I-D, it's an acronym, medical aid in dying, the current euphemism for euthanasia and assisted suicide. Another euthanasia doctor, obstetrician Stephanie Green, say that she's ended the lives of 300 people through MAIDs thus far. There's a 41-year-old, Rosina Camise, who did not have a terminal condition. She wasn't a MAID, M-A-I-D recipient, but was facing eviction and was short of money for food. Lonely, she decided that suicide was her best solution for all and died by lethal injection in her basement apartment on September 26, 2021. A 55-year-old patient named Mary was featured in a MAID presentation. The presenter noted that she does not want to die, but she's suffering terribly and she's been maxing out her credit cards. She has no other options. So they're telling you have no other, because you maxed out your credit cards, she had no other options but to kill herself? Really? The list seems endless. I don't want to read you all of them. There's a 68-year-old Nancy, a former doctor, who ran out of money, who had assisted suicide. 57-year-old Greg, a homeless writer who the doctor killed. 38-year-old Lucy, a gender-confused immigrant who is killed. Wiebe, however, is supportive of suicide for those who are lonely or poor. She says it's not just a medical thing. If you're lonely, you have the right to kill yourself. If you're poor, you have the right to kill yourself. Webb is also a big proponent of assisted suicide being available for those suffering from mental illness. What these profiles do not mention about Dr. Wiebe is that she is also an abortionist and has dispatched patients on both ends of life spectrum at her Vancouver clinic. Also mentioned is the fact that on June 29, 2017, Wiebe and a nurse sneaked into the Louis Breyer Home and Hospital, an Orthodox Jewish nursing home in Vancouver that forbids assisted suicide. Can you imagine? This doctor, quote unquote, stuck into a Jewish nursing home who forbids suicide, and she euthanized 2 patients that were there. The deeply held convictions of the Louis Breyer Home and Hospital didn't mean a single thing to her. Neither did the peace of mind of the Holocaust survivors and other elderly who actually lived there. For Wiebe, giving patients lethal injections is, in her own words, the most rewarding work I've ever done. Presumably, she's contrasting that to her history of ending life in the womb. In Canada, however, she's hailed by the mainstream media as a pioneer. This is our news. This is stuff that's happening around our world. Let me give you this last one. It's very prophetic as I give you this one. And it actually proves your scriptures. A special cleanup crew. Scavenging animals are often looked down upon as dirty creatures, yet they play a vital role in balancing and protecting our ecosystem. By devouring carcasses, they prevent pathogens from spreading to humans and wildlife, and contaminants from leaching into our environment. The BBC said that. Vultures, for example, are highly efficient at cleaning up dead animals. They can eat up to 40% of their own body weight, compared to just 5% for most other scavenging animals. Vultures clean down to the bone, preventing the spread of pathogens. When vulture populations decline, diseases speed up and spread more rapidly. The efficiency of vultures also keeps feral dog populations in check, thus keeping rabies at bay. The scavengers even reduce the greenhouse gases emitted by decomposing carrion. Vulture populations are in great decline in many parts of the world, such as the Indian subcontinent, due to poisons spread on animal carcasses and the drugs used to treat sick cattle, which when they die are consumed by the vultures. Except Israel. Vulture population in Israel has reached an 8-year high. It's been building up for 8 years straight. Scientists are baffled, but I'm not baffled. Let me tell you why. There's a great supper of the great God coming. And Revelation says this, and I saw an angel standing in the sun and cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God. You know what this is? This is the Battle of Armageddon. This is the kill-off of massive amounts of people in the Valley of Armageddon. And God is already assembling vultures. I mean, I get chills. If you don't think the Lord is close to coming, I get chills. These vultures are assembling for one reason and one reason only, to eat the dead in the Valley of Armageddon. Man, if you can't get any more prophetic of a weekly headline than that. That's in the news for tonight. And I'm going to go right into our Zechariah study. Let me remind you of a couple things as I do this. I will be preaching at the Healing Place on February 19th at 11 o'clock service. And I'm looking forward to it in a sense. I am looking forward to it, but it's going to be an extremely emotional service. A lot of these people have been praying for me, and I told the pastor when he asked me to come several months ago, I said I want to come when I'm able to walk out into the pulpit on my own volition, and thank God I'll be able to do that. So I'm looking forward to it. Also, March, we'll give you the rundown of the itinerary, but I'm starting to preach around the state again. On March 5th, I'll be preaching in Albertsville. No, March 5th I'll be preaching in Asheville. I'll also be preaching in the future in Albertsville, and also in I know the name of it, Florence. Thank you. All right.